So, hello everybody. I think I can start. I didn't see a sign, but I can see the screen. Okay. So thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for having me. Same excuse as Barbara. So I'm I'm also infected with coronavirus. I was really looking forward to come to Israel, and it's the highlight of the week that I can be with you this hour and discuss it via video conference, because I'm also in quarantine now. Thank you very much, and thank you also, Eli, for the technical support. It was not so easy, but we made it, and I'm happy that I made it to you. Thank you, Boaz, also for introducing myself, and I want to little bit elaborate before I start my self-introduction. I started my studies with politics, and was the main issue of my work was political bias and the Constitutional Court of Austria. And then I continued and finished my law studies by banking regulation. And then I did an MBA, which there I was dealing about with the question of market failure based on state intervening and state guarantees on banks. Yeah, it was too early. It was 2003. The bomb exploded in 2008. It was the financial crisis then, where state-aided banks had a big portion in the crisis. And then I finished my studies with a PhD, where I'm working on financing of hospitals based on public-private partnership concepts. And we were able to show also and realize 1,000 rehab beds here in the region. And we could show that we make it faster and better than maybe if it's only run by a state construction company. So I come then to the issue, the question of elite, and I will continue with Barbara. She said it's time for action. I was asking myself when we were preparing and discussing the title, how can you explain that there is something like, or is there something like a good or bad elite? Is this a good or bad thing to have an elite? And you cannot around the thesis and theories of Vilfredo Pareto, who was initially dealing with the question of elites, and he was distinguishing it in ruling or governing elites and non-governing elites. But in my opinion, his theory was a little bit, it was not holistic enough. It was too short, because I think you should, or I used a more systemic approach. And I was thinking about what distinguishes good elites from bad elites, if there is something like good and bad elites. And it's interesting, if you then look for books about elites, you easily can find it with Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Yeah? So it's in his communistic manifest, it's the bourgeoisie, yeah? Which has to be overcome, yeah, by the masses, for example. And that leads you to the question, and it's very close related to what Barbara said in her examples. And I found out, so I think there's one distinction. This is, you have to look, is it an etatistic system, so determined by the part of the state influence and the portion of market which is occupied by the state, or is it a free market system with the least influence of the state? So in my opinion, it's the most important distinction if there is a concept like an elite concept working. And there was also a question raised up by honorable member of Knesset, Sharon Haskell. She was telling about security. I think you have also distinguished and between, there is a market sphere question of elite and etatistic systems. If you look at etatistic systems, so a great portion of market is occupied by the state, you very easily can find arguments for reducing privacy in favor of the state, because the state is organizing everything. So the state is providing you food, electricity, education, living plan, pension plan, information, news, newspapers, literature, everything. So there is also always, and that means also that you can easily find it in historical concepts like Kemalism or Peronism, where the portion of the state or the part of the state in the economy was really huge. And which elite do you need for this kind of etatistic system? You need elite, and an elite that is that is more focused on keeping status quo, more focused on heritating their positions. So it's a kind of aristocracy, not named so. And we saw it also in the old Soviet system. And I found an old book very back in my library, which was called the Nomenklatura. That's a synonym for this kind of elite. Yeah. So, okay. So what's the other side? What's the other concept? I think if you have to look on the question of elite in combination with the question of the system you're in favor of. And democracy is also always a system which should focus on the least state influence. Why that? Then you have a free market, you have innovation, you have progress, you have also rivalry amongst groups, you have competition, but the elite itself, will also be an elite, but it is not determined by the nomenclatura questions. It is determined by the state of being. So it's not forever, it's not indefinite. You have to obtain a position, you have to contribute knowledge, know-how, innovation to society, and at least it is not a concept of oppressing or possessing somebody or someone. It's more a concept of being advantage, so being more forward. And for me, it was also interesting when I heard the question and the presentation of the central bank, as I understood, to the Knesset, and they showed a lot of data, which is everything is proving that everything is good. Yeah? And excuse me for that, a little provocation, but if you have a bureaucracy that is presenting a lot of data that shows everything is in favor of the current system, running as it is, so it is in the end in favor of the status quo. Yeah? So this is maybe an indicator for more etatistic approach, which leads more to conserving the status quo than to the question of innovation. So the only way to come to on the so to speak on the free side is to reduce state influence in the end, and open the market, but only the spheres they are eligible for the market. The spheres are not questions like, for example, national security. So that's my short input to this question, and thank you for having me.